So welcome everyone to our information session for the CIO evaluation mini grants. This is round two of our eval mini grants, and I'll focus on, as soon as I can get my screen to advance, on what we'll be covering today. So I'll cover just a little bit about COO and what are the elements of this request. Actually, it should be a request for applications, minor detail, and what we're looking for in this grant opportunity. Was there a hand that just got raised? Since I'm doing screen share, it can be a little awkward. Or a chat, something was entered in the chat, maybe.
Hey, Rox, I just said welcome to folks in the chat, and I'm
Great.
watching the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then I
Sure.
am going to ignore the chat because when I screen share, it's a little hard for me to maneuver with the slides. So I'm Roxana Chen, she, her pronouns. I lead the evaluation for communities of opportunity. And I will just go ahead and provide this quick refresher on COO. So basically, all of you should know, given that anyone who is on that email list has been funded through CAO before, that our focus is on investing in community power. And our hope by investing in community power is that that can lead to community-led solutions in which communities are healthy and thriving, where equity and racial justice is achievable and necessary. And ultimately, the ways that we're hoping to see this is that through the community-led solutions, people thrive economically, have quality, affordable housing, are connected to community, and are healthy. And then in this next slide, this is a lot more specific and grounded in ways we think about building community power. You can see what COO's evaluation questions are in the short and intermediate and in the long term, and some of the core community power concepts that are of interest to us. As I mentioned, ultimately we're wanting to see, has COO contributed to self-determined, healthy, thriving communities? And how has it contributed to thriving communities as evidenced by stronger community connections, increased equity in housing, health, and economic conditions? And some of that intermediate outcomes of how has COO increased and demonstrated community power? What are those structural changes that have resulted from COO-funded work? And so who is this opportunity for? This is specifically open to formerly funded community partnerships and systems and policy change partners. I think largely we were envisioning folks who were funded in the first levy, COO 1.0, but it can include folks who were funded also in 2.0, but are no longer being funded. Ultimately, we're interested in capturing and understanding what have been some of those longer term outcomes or impacts of work that had been funded through COO. So just more details on this. Like I said, whoops, this advanced before I meant to, sorry. We're looking for short-term discrete evaluation projects that can help us understand those longer-term outcomes impacts of COO work. When I say short-term discrete evaluation projects, we're looking at things that can be implemented and completed within a 6 to 10 month period. To be completed basically by September 30th of 2027 at the very latest. And so, like I said, this just helps us to understand what the longer term outcomes impacts are, helps us understand how COO activities have contributed building community power and change over time. So we understand that a lot of this work that's aimed at building community power to try to get at structural change takes time. And some of that work that may have been started in 1.0 or in 2022, 2023 needed more time than just say a couple of years to see a longer term result. And so we're hoping that by funding a mini grant opportunity, folks can use those funds to do a short project where you can capture some of those longer term results. Let's see. And so here in this slide, I just shared some examples of potential outcome or impact evaluation activities. And so what's listed here are just examples, but what you can suggest or propose is not limited to this. And so the examples that I put on here include ripple effects mapping. So you could do a ripple effects mapping session where you can capture some of those intended and unintended outcomes of some of that work that you had done through COO. And for those of you who are familiar with ripple effects mapping, you can just kind of take that through a longer term trajectory in seeing, you started from this point and this led to X, which led to Y, which led to Z, et cetera. I should have started at something earlier than X, but hopefully you get the gist of that. And so some of those deliverables for a project that does ripple effects mapping can include the output of a ripple effects mapping session or multiple sessions if you propose something like that. It can include doing things like focus groups or interviews or surveys with folks who were involved in COO work to hear from them how the work that had originally been started in COO, if it's work that continues now, how that work has impacted them. It can include things like using photo voice or digital storytelling to capture impact stories. Some brass tack logistics that I wanted to share is that with this evaluation mini grant, the funding request limits are up to $9,999, and the application deadline is August 10th at 2 p.m. I know that might sound like a random time. It means that rather than set it for, say, the Friday before, which we had originally considered, if you encounter some hiccups in sending in your application and attachments, there is some time to troubleshoot. So the reason why it's set at 2 p.m. is to allow for that time in case you encounter any technical difficulties with trying to send in your application and attachments. After the application, then we will have a letter of agreement period, and our hope is that we can have contracts start by November 1st. This is a tentative date because it does depend on how long some of the internal contracting processes take. And due to a newer requirement, we will also need a couple extra weeks to get King County Council approval. And then the end date for the projects can be between June or possibly earlier, but at the very latest, September 30th, 2027. And again, end date is depending on your proposal timeline and when we're able to get contracts started. Since our overall available funding for this second round of mini grants is $110,000. If we do grant up to $9,999, we anticipate giving out approximately 11 awards for this round. This slide basically just puts all together the different deadlines, timelines for you all to be aware of. So the solicitation went out or was launched July 9th last week. You all are here for the info session. The last date for you to request technical assistance is August 3rd. And I'll share a little bit more about the technical assistance shortly. But just know that if you do need technical assistance to provide you with some support as you pull together a proposal, you do have until August 3rd to submit a request. But we do recommend that if you think that you need TA, to email the technical assistance providers as soon as possible. That way you have more time to work with them and run your questions by them to incorporate into your proposal sooner than later. The deadline to contact King County with any questions about this funding opportunity is August 6th by 12 p.m. Since that's a Thursday, then it gives them time to send it to us for response by Friday, so that we can respond to you, so that you can get your applications in by that Monday, which is the 10th, and that's August 10th by 2 p.m. We'll be reviewing the applications immediately after that, so from August 11th through the 13th, so that we can make our recommendations by the end of that day. And then we anticipate that we can send notifications of awards by August 17th. We're hoping that we can get started on letter of agreement discussions sometime between October and November. Again, that's tentative depending on contracting processes and council approval. And then we would aim to have a first deliverable due so that we can get some money out to you for doing the work by late November. By 2 or so weeks after a contract is launched. And that first deliverable would be a hammered out work plan for your evaluation plan. And then the contract end date, again, would be summer of 2027 with September 30th, 2027 at the latest for the contract end, meaning the evaluation project, including deliverables, would be completed by September 30th at the very latest. Just so you have an idea of what we're looking for in this application is, please note, when you were previously funded as a community partnership or a systems and policies change partner, and include your evaluation questions, what you want to evaluate the impact outcome of, and we want to be clear on what COO work you're referring to here. So when you share with us what you're hoping to evaluate the impact or outcomes of, this is an opportunity where you can clarify that. We want to hear from you. How do you plan to evaluate the outcomes and impacts? And how does this connect to your organization and COO's goals? As I mentioned earlier, COO's goals for this is to try to get at longer term outcomes and impacts of COO funded work. And tying this to COO initiative goals is trying to hear, how has in the long run, your previously funded work contributed to building community power to get at structural change for equity. And that would be evidenced through, people thriving economically, having access to quality, affordable housing, being connected to community, being healthier. In your evaluation plan, we also would like to hear about any staffing and supports you need to do this evaluation project, and let us know if you already have access to these or if you hope to contract out. So for example, like with ripple effects mapping, some folks have contracted out to have a contractor conduct a ripple effects mapping session with their group or groups, or contracting out with someone to help conduct focus groups or interviews, or help them with developing a survey and helping doing that analysis. So those are just examples of some of the ways that you could contract out if you don't have in-house support available to you. We'd like to hear about your project deliverables. What are your end products that you hope to result from this project? Like a final report, a presentation, visuals, graphics that you can share with stakeholders. And what are ways that you hope that you can use those results and projects of the results and projects of products, sorry, of your evaluation project. That is a typo there. Projects should read products there of your evaluation project. Our hope is that there is a both and benefit to the project deliverables where COO can both learn about the longer term outcomes and impacts of your COO funded work. And the deliverables can also help you where you can use those to share about your own successes from this work that you had done. In your application, we'd like for you to include a preliminary work plan and timeline for your evaluation project. We expect that the work can be done within 6 to 10 months. It can be done shorter than that, and it just kind of depends on what it is that you're proposing. And then we hope to see a budget included in your application. How do you use this? How do you plan to use this eval funding? What are the resources that you need? Describe the funds for the different elements of your evaluation plan, and your budget can't exceed $9,999. And we hope that what you propose lines up with the budget that you have in there. So hopefully what's in there lines up with the amount that you request and the timeline that you've proposed. Right. For your application and budget, this is just, something for you to look at when you're doing your application to ask yourself, does your proposal clearly state your eval questions? Does your eval plan capture outcomes or impact of your formerly funded COO work? Is the timeline for the project realistic? Similarly, is your budget realistic? Does it account for contractors, stipends, or software needs? And just making sure that your budget is appropriate for the time that you've proposed. This basically just kind of continues with that same line of thought. In the next slide I'm going to share, just make sure that you review our scoring criteria, which will be on the next slide. Our review panel will basically look at your application and then use the scoring rubric to make sure that you've ticked all the different boxes of what we're looking for. And just, we will have a formal review process that includes a review panel that is going through the scoring rubric. And here is our scoring rubric. So this is a bit of a cheat sheet for you so that you know exactly what it is that we're looking for. This is something that will be available for you to see on the solicitation page. At the end of this info session, I will share a link to where you have all the details of the solicitation, including the slide deck that we've just gone through here, which includes this rating criteria. That webpage will also include the recording from today. So as I mentioned, there is technical assistance available to you through Best Starts for Kids. And this is free technical assistance. It's intended to support applicants and reduce any barriers that might prevent you from applying. The deadline, as I mentioned earlier, to request assistance is Monday, August 3rd. But as I also mentioned, if you think that this is an opportunity that you would like to pursue and you think that you would need TA assistance, the best bet is for you to reach out as soon as possible, because then it just gives you more time to have Q&A with your technical assistance provider. And I've outlined here what TA providers can provide supports for. They can help you determine if there's a good fit between what you have in mind and this funding opportunity. And then if it is a good fit, they can provide you some guidance on how to approach answering questions. And if there is data that's can kind of bolster your proposal, they can help you figure out where to find some of that data. It doesn't necessarily mean external data. It could be data that you already have in-house because of your COO work. They can review your application, including doing support with editing and reviewing the budget you've proposed. But just so you know, I do need to be clear that the consultants are not grant writers. So they are not there to write your proposal, but they can help make sure that you have a stronger proposal to submit. So if you do think that you would like technical assistance support, these are the two different provider groups, technical assistance providers that you can reach out to. One is from Dicentra, and then there's Crux. We do have one TA provider, I think, on the call. So Swime, if you want to go off mute and just share a little bit. If I didn't say anything correctly, please do feel free to correct me.
Thank you, Roxana. Good afternoon, everyone. Um, we we have had the great pleasure of supporting an organization with this application last year. So do bear in mind, as Roxana mentioned, that this application will end on August 10. So essentially, there is only about 3.5 weeks to submit an application. And as she has encouraged, we would also encourage you, if you would like support from a technical assistance provider, please reach out as soon as possible. So both my colleagues and I, and also the Crux team, including Tasha, are available to support you, and we will help you through the process. And so thank you, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks, Roxana.
Thanks, Swime. Yeah, so just reiterating, reach out to Dicentra or Crux as soon as possible if you think you would like technical assistance on a proposal. But the last date to request support would be August 3rd by noon, so that they can get back to you and you have a week to work together before the deadline. Any questions, please direct that to King County BSK CPRES, and the address is cpres-bsk@kingcounty.gov. The last day to submit any emails or questions to CPRES is August 6th by noon, so that they can get that to us on the eval team so that we can provide a response in time for you to clarify any questions that you may have related to this funding opportunity. And here's the website where the details for this funding opportunity are posted. It's at coopartnerships.org/eval minigrant. It'll include those details that had been emailed out in the announcement, the email announcement to you last week. There you will also find the link to the recording for this information session. You'll also find on there any answers to questions that have come up from this info session and the answers that we provide. Also, if you have any questions, they are all to go to that CPRES BSK address. With those questions, we'll be responding, and we will post those questions and answers on this COO partnerships page as well. So that is a landing page that may be a helpful reference for you, both for seeing the details, being reminded of what this funding opportunity is looking for, as well as any Q&A that comes up from this info session or Q&A that others or you all have asked. You can find the responses to those questions on this landing page. All right, so with that, I'll just open it up to any questions. And so for those of you on the call who are interested in this funding opportunity, if you do have any questions that have come up for you right now, feel free to go ahead and come off mute and ask it. And Dan, if I don't know if anything is in the chat, but if folks have emailed or put in the chat any questions that they have. Um, you can read that out loud for them. Yeah.
Hey, Rox. Um, the Jessica, hi Jessica from BlackBerry asks a question. If your CO activity was with a collaborative, are you required to submit an application based on that activity, or can you choose your own?
It would have to be a COO funded activity. So it's not just, I mean, as a part of a collaborative, that does qualify you in terms of eligibility. But in terms of what we're looking for is we're hoping to see what are the longer term or outcomes and impacts of COO funded work. So if, and Jessica, feel free to come off mute and we can talk this through if that's helpful. If what you're interested in evaluating was something that COO helps support, then yeah, that could be something that would be logical to make some sort of evaluation proposal for. But if it's something that wasn't supported by COO, then no. But I'm not sure that I'm fully understanding what you have in mind. So it's best if you just ask me.
Yeah, well, BlackBerry is part of the Burien Collaborative,
Right.
and their activity and what they did was different. Sometimes I still wonder, what it all entailed. I know it was like community building and between organizations, excuse me, in the Burien area. Excuse me. But we were there as part of bringing like the health section of it, like since we were a doula org. And so I'm just wondering, could we submit an application based on our work as part of the collaborative, not the collaborative as a whole? That makes any sense?
Yeah. It's a little bit difficult for me to answer. I guess, are you, would you be able to couch it as a question related to like an evaluation question? Like what impacts you're hoping to evaluate?
Yeah, it's kind of going through my mind now, so it wouldn't sound clear right now, but yes, it would be a question, but yeah, I'm excuse me, I'm just trying to figure out how we can apply based on our work within the scope of the collaborative and their work
Right, right, right,
and its
right.
work.
Sure.
So that's the tricky part because everybody is part of the collaborative. Kind of were doing their own thing, but came together. And a lot of focus was on the Latin um, community where we were trying to do something towards the Black community and ask this question. So I'll yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, I think what would make it most helpful for us in figuring out if this funding opportunity lines up is uh, if we were to ask, how did it, is this something that COO helps support is the first question. Like, and um, I know that there was a lot of breadth, or is a lot of breadth in the collaboratives work, and
Mhm.
how the partnership functions. And so, and I appreciate your point about how BlackBerry contributed to some of that work in health equity, particularly doula work with the Black community in Burien. I think for lack of having a sense of what you have in mind, it's a little difficult for me to answer, which I'm sure is unsatisfying to you.
No, no, I mean, I've been racking my brain, so I get it. I guess I would just have to look at maybe the original grant or deliverables of the CEO with the collaborative and see how I can fit that in possibly.
Yeah, I guess it would, one way to think about it is would you be able to, do you feel like you would be able to tell that story of COO helped support this work, um, and this is what has resulted from it, essentially, um, uh, or
Yes, I do have that is kind of the thing. So like the Medicaid reimbursement, that's what I'm thinking of for doulas.
I see. Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
And how, how be able to evaluate its impact, um, with doula support, with even the Black doulas and just really doulas in general. But yeah, so that anyway, that was kind of my thinking.
Yeah, and just so you know, from what I understand, BlackBerry is a part of Doulas for All. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Hmm.
And so, you actually have a connection with your work, um, having been supported through both community partnerships and the systems and policy change strategies. And so, if you're talking about that part of your work,
Hmm.
that would fall more under an outcome evaluation for stuff that had happened through the systems and policy change. And so I, I think you do have a case to be made for your COO funded work, being able to get at outcomes and impacts of the work that you've done through COO. Essentially, we're trying to get at, I know I sound like a broken record now. We just want to get a better understanding of what have been some of those longer term outcomes and impacts of the
Hmm.
work that COO has funded. And
Hmm.
if you have a project in mind where this evaluation funding can help support answering that, getting at some of those outcomes, and impacts, whether they be intended or unintended, then um, this could be a fit.
Ooh, okay. Now I'm excited. Thank you.
Does anyone else on the line have a question? Or is anything else in the chat, Dan?
Yeah, yeah. Devonshire asked, will the results of these grant-funded evaluation projects impact whether or not or how much we will see in future COO funding opportunities?
Uh, I'm not sure. You mean, will it impact how? Devonshire, could you expand? Do you mean in terms of how much is allocated to COO as an investment area of best starts, or for evaluation, or for um, yeah.
Yeah, I can elaborate. I'm just curious. I wasn't actually on the team within my organization who worked on the original COO funded project. But what I'm curious is because this is an evaluation project of long-term impacts of that work,
Hmm.
what is it for? Like what will it inform? What will it change? Will it be helping decide whether or not these types of funding opportunities continue? Will it
Ah,
be informing, if the long-term outcomes and impacts are significant, will there be increased funding opportunities?
so all I can say here is I can't promise increased funding opportunities, but I will say that part of the reason for a deadline of September at the very latest is so that we have time to share this information out to folks to better understand um, the impacts of funding this type of community power building work.
Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Like, do you mind my asking which organization or partnership you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I work for GSBA, Greater Seattle Business Association, and I think our original project um, involved a collaboration with the Trans Economic Empowerment Coalitions.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm just curious if if our if we were to get funding, or if any of these organizations were to get funding, and the results of the evaluation project showed that the impact was significant, does that mean, you know, likelihood for more funding for this type of work?
Yeah, I can't vouch for what decision makers do in terms of increasing funding, but what it can do is at least showcase the value of funding this type of work. With our current evaluation, it shows the impact in the short term. The hope with evaluating formerly funded stuff that was earlier is that it shows how it can have longer term impacts, like as well as ripples that are impactful. Because I think oftentimes once funding ends, with a lot of things, you don't see what the long-term impacts have been. And so with TEC, this can be an opportunity to see how some of that work has played out in the longer term.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Rox.
Yep.
Brandon in the chat asks, will the grant opportunity auto-populate in the Agilov portal? I'm applying for other grants via King County DCHS Agilov and didn't see this grant in the funding ops section. Apologies if it hasn't been published.
That's a really good question. So something that we learned is, so there is a DCHS Agilov process for this, but since this is a closed eligibility opportunity, it is not something that would show up in the BSK funding opportunity for everyone. And the reason for that is to eliminate the possibility of people who are not eligible from spending time applying for something they're not eligible for. And so what we learned internally is that CPRES BSK will actually help shoulder some of that Agilov headache on behalf of folks initially, where you do not have to submit your application through Agilov. This actually is a very helpful question, so I can reiterate this point. Send your application and all of your attachments, meaning if you have an attachment of a budget or a work plan versus it already being in a single document, then all of that should be emailed to CPRES BSK. All of your application materials should be emailed directly to that email address, and our CPRES person will actually upload all of that into Agiloft. In order to be funded for this opportunity, you do need to have an Agiloft account. Initially, we thought that everyone needed to have that Agiloft account ready already, but it turns out for the sake of this funding opportunity, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So it does save the step of you having to upload everything into Agiloft yourself, since our CPRES person will do that. But should you be awarded, then an Agiloft account does need to have been set up by then. So it does behoove everyone to have, to request access to Agiloft if you don't already have that, because it can take a little bit of time to get that properly set up. So thanks for asking that question. It was both a no and a yes, meaning no, it is not visible under the BSK DCHS Agiloft because we were trying to make sure that people ineligible don't accidentally apply for something they're ineligible for. But if you want to make sure that contracting processes aren't slowed down by the fact that you don't have an Agiloft account, you should get that set up sooner than later. And if you have that account, it does mean that if you're already set up with Agiloft, you will be able to see funding opportunities that come up. So it'll make it easier for you in the long run to just have that access. And if that was confusing, feel free to say so.
Hi, this is Brandon. Thank you so much for that. I think I'll just reply to Dan's email and make sure I'm on the receiving end of all the documents that we'll need to complete. Thank you.
Oh, just so you know, and we now that the solicitation has launched, we're not actually allowed to respond directly to the questions. So any questions that you have actually at this point now needs to be directed to CPRES BSK. But in terms of what is expected of you, it's basically your evaluation proposal, and in that proposal answering those questions that we have for your application, including having a work plan and a budget. So go ahead and review that email that was sent to you last week. I'm assuming that you must have received the email if you're on the call, or at least been forwarded it maybe. But please review that email and direct any questions to that email, because that cpress-bsk@kingcounty.gov email is the best way to ask your questions. And we will post the answers on the solicitation page, and you will also, I imagine, get a response that way as well from CPRES. Were there any other questions? Dan, did you see any other questions crop up?
Nothing in the chat yet at this point, Rox.
Okay. I mean, I can hang out here for a few more minutes if that's helpful for folks, if you need to just noodle over things a bit. If you want, now's a chance before we close out the Zoom. If there's a slide that you'd like for me to go back to, if that'll help you think about any questions.
It looks like Rox Inye has raised their hand.
Yeah, great, go for it.
I did have a question in chat. Maybe it just didn't show up. So it occurred to me that this is very much in alignment with something that I had been wanting to accomplish for our CO funded program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just, so I'm actually curious and just want to confirm that any sort of IP that we create during the evaluation grant process will still be available for us to continue to use as we, advance that work in other ways.
When you say IP, sorry, what are you?
So for instance, there was even though I've never seen the term before, the REM,
ripple effects mapping. Yeah,
Yes.
and products that are generated, while we may have that as a deliverable for you to send to us, it's
Right.
yours for you to use.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm.
Our hope is that this is of benefit to you to continue or further the work that you may have started in COO.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, no, I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Yep. would folks like for me to move back to a previous slide at all, or if there's no questions, you can put in the chat for Dan to let me know, like you're good, and we can hop off. Up to you. I'm here to try to be helpful while we have this Zoom line open.
This was helpful. Thank you. So I'm gonna log off. It was very helpful.
Okay,
I appreciate
great. Dan, are there any more questions that have cropped up?
No, just not yet. Just folks saying thank you for the information, and not any other questions. Folks that if you have, you're obviously welcome to leave the call.
Well,
And
it looks like everyone has dropped off now, so I'm assuming that
oh,
they
you and me.
yeah, it's just the two of us. I'm going to stop this.